Assess the evidence. Again, this is the first half of the course. How do you weigh evidence? How do scientists work? How do journalists work? What's the verification process? Let's demystify this. How do journalists go out and do things? And we love to give them case studies. And one of the case studies we give them is the Katrina case study. If you remember in the days right after Katrina, there were reports in the press, this is from the Times-Picayune, good newspaper, good reporter, that 10,000 people may have been killed, and that 40 bodies, people who had been murdered, those bodies were in a freezer at the convention center in New Orleans, including a 7-year-old girl who had been raped and murdered. Bodies found piled in freezer. The impression, if you remember, across the country was what? That civil disorder had broken down in New Orleans, that it was out of control. There was only one problem. What was the problem with the story? Anybody know? Anybody know? Yes. Go ahead. It wasn't true. There were no bodies in the freezer. No bodies. So we have the students read this, and I go through this, and then I tell them, and they say to me, how is that possible? How can a major newspaper get that wrong and convey that kind of information? And then we show them, we have them read, let me go back for a second. We have them read an account. This reporter went back, so he was so mortified, and re-interviewed every single person in the story to find out why he got it wrong. And he did a piece in the American Journalism Review, how I got my story wrong. And here's what he discovered. He got this information about the freezer from 2 National Guardsmen who were guarding the freezer. He says to them, what's inside? They said 40 bodies. They described them in great detail. He goes back and he says, how come there's no bodies? And they say to him, you know, we didn't see what was inside the freezer ourselves. We got that information when we were on the food line from the 2 guards before us who were guarding the freezer. The reporter says in that story, the biggest mistake of my professional life was not opening the freezer myself. And you know what we discover? It becomes a metaphor. A week or 2 later, a student gets up in class, and we're talking about a whole different story. And he says, the reporter never opened the freezer. I never could see that documentary evidence. And so we actually have made up buttons that we give to students when they leave at the end of the semester. And it says, news literacy, open the freezer. And then, when they leave the lecture hall, we have 2 freezers outside. We do. Not with body parts. Don't get excited. And we give them ice cream when they open the freezer. Because we want them to remember this as a metaphor for the whole course. We want them to use this as a metaphor for searching for the best possible levels of evidence when they go into the news reports, whether on TV or anyplace else. And we teach them what's direct evidence and indirect evidence, etc. You're going to see more of that. We talk to them about why reporters make mistakes. They come feeling that the news media has a lot of bias. We'll talk about that in a second. And they equate mistakes with bias. It reminds me of the story when I was the editor of Newsday and we had obituaries. And this is mortifying, but once or twice a year we would bury the wrong person. You know, we get one of the dead people, their names mixed up, and I had a woman call me and said, you got my father's name wrong in the obituary, and I felt terrible, and I went back to the reporter and I said, how did we make the mistake? And they said, well, there was a mix-up between the funeral home gave us the wrong name. So I called the woman back and she said, that's not why you made the mistake. I said, no, that's why we made the mistake. No, that's not why we made the mistake. You made the mistake because my father was a Republican, and you don't like Republicans. So we got to make sure students understand that when the verification process breaks down, there's a lot of reasons. Sloppiness, stupidity, time restraints. It's not an indication of bias. And being a reporter is hard work. It's difficult. It's an imperfect process. And we want them as news consumers to understand this.